Good evening. I am Payam Zamani, and I'm the founder CEO of One Planet. I'm really excited about tonight's event. We felt that in the era of COVID-19, it would be a good idea to offer a platform that would allow entrepreneurs to seek funding and also to make sure that their ideas continue to flourish. I feel honored to be sharing this virtual stage with Mar Hershenson from Pear VC and with DeBerry from Bronze VC, and feel grateful that so many entrepreneurs responded to our call and applied to be considered for tonight's pitch event. The entrepreneurs that you will hear from tonight are some of the most creative people that we have come across in the last few months. Their businesses were selected out of over 50 entries for tonight's program. So here's how it will go tonight. The three of us will quickly introduce ourselves, and then Jenna Nicholas, who's the vice president with One Planet Ventures, will unschedule as she will introduce the entrepreneurs. Each entrepreneur will have 5 minutes to present, and then we will each take 1 to 2 minutes asking questions, and then the entrepreneurs will have 4 to 5 minutes to respond to those questions and comments. You as an audience can send questions and comments via commenting on Facebook or YouTube, and as time allows, we will share some of those. If you are an investor and interested to connect with any of the entrepreneurs who will present tonight, please reach out and we will be happy to make intros. There is no competition here between the investors. Our hope is that these great entrepreneurs ultimately would get the funding that they need. So a little about myself. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an operator, and I'm an investor. My first company was AutoWeb.com, which I co-founded in 1994 and took public in 1999. I'm now operating One Planet, and at One Planet we do three different things. We own and operate a few tech businesses. Our primary focus historically has been the ad tech space. We also incubate new business ideas, and we also invest in new businesses and entrepreneurs. Typically at the seed level. Some of our investments that you may have heard of include Valancy, which is in the drone delivery business, the Real, which is an e-commerce business, and also Soul Pancake, which has been a great provider of digital content, great content that I believe does make the world a better place. But more important than all of this, we are trying to figure out a better way to build and grow businesses. In a way that is more in line with what I believe to be the spiritual principles that will make us the humans that we are. An approach that takes into account the nobility of our intentions. And as part of that, hopefully it will dictate the outcome that we are after. Making money is okay, but if that's your sole reason for building a business, then we at One Planet are not the right investor for you. We think the concept of maximization of shareholder value as the primary driver is a very archaic way to think about your business as an entrepreneur. So as we invest in great ideas. We do great in great ideas that have a great potentials and the potentials for a great outcome, but we only invest in entrepreneurs that we feel they can make the world a better place as a result of their idea, their business, but really as a result of who they are and how passionate they are about some of the things that truly matter. With that said, I would like to welcome Stephen and Mar and ask Mar to please introduce herself. Then Stephen will do the same, and then Jenna will introduce our first entrepreneur. Mar.
Hi, thank you, Payam. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be part of this event today and talk to all the founders here.
Mar, could you please make sure camera is on?
It's on.
Okay, perfect. Go.
Anyways, my name is Mar. I'm one of the founding partners at Pear VC. Pear is an early stage fund. We have 300 million under management. We're 7 years old. We invest very early. Typically, we're the first check, and we invest cross sectors. So we have consumer companies, we have B2B companies, deep tech companies, all sorts of companies. Some of the companies that we have invested in the past that we may know include DoorDash, Gusto, Garden Health, and Dropbox as well. We are very focused in the 0 to 1 stage. I'm by background an engineer and also do a lot of teaching around the 0 to 1 stage. So we roll up our sleeves and work with the founders to figure out what is that right product that we can scale efficiently. Some people will call that finding the product market fit. And I love doing that. I love the challenge that every company offers us as to figure out the puzzle to get it there. So again, excited to be here and looking forward to hearing more from the founders.
Thank you, Mar. Stephen.
Hey, Payam, I'm really glad to be part of this conversation and this effort. My name's Stephen DeBerry. I'm the general partner at Bronze VC, and we invest in businesses focusing on East Side communities, which are businesses on the social, economic, and environmental margin, interested in people and places that often the technology industry and the economy at large don't really consider when they're in the design process of building the innovations that make our society better. A lot of the areas that we focus on end up touching on health, education, financial services, food, but we'll look at any category where we see an opportunity to uplift outcomes for people and places. And I want to, reiterate what Payam was saying, because this notion that we need to just maximize profit solely for profit's sake is really sort of a pre-millennium way of thinking, in my view. And so I think we get along with One Planet really well in that way. So the view from Bronze is really about looking for alignment. Our view is an incremental unit of revenue should drive an incremental unit of impact, and ideally vice versa. And if we can find companies that have that kind of alignment, then we want to be in the business of helping those companies grow, because when we do that, we can create more jobs, we can deliver returns to our investors and pension funds and folks who are making the economy grow. But as those businesses grow, our society is getting better. And that's why I'm here today. I couldn't be more excited to partner with Pear and with One Planet, and the group of entrepreneurs that we're going to see are just fantastic. So I'm really excited and grateful to be here.
Thank you, Stephen. Jenna, our first entrepreneur.
Fantastic. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you here today. I'm Jenna Nicholas, and very excited to introduce our first entrepreneur this evening, Steph Spears, with Solstice, doing amazing work in the community solar space and joining us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. So over to Steph.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steph Spears. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Solstice. We provide community shared solar power to the people who are currently locked out of the clean energy market. And by that, I mean 4 out of 5 Americans cannot put solar on their own home because they can't install it because their roof is made out of the wrong materials, or the roof is facing the wrong way, or it's made out of the wrong, it's facing the wrong orientation, or there's a tree covering their roof, or they're a renter, or they're a condo owner, or they cannot afford solar power. And there's a solution out there for these 80% of Americans that cannot install solar on their home. And is everyone able to see my video? I'm getting alerts on here. Okay, cool. So there's a solution out there for the people that can't put solar on their own home, and it's called community solar. So community solar means that you don't have to put solar on your own home. You can actually buy a portion of a neighborhood shared solar farm and participate in clean energy that way. There's actually no upfront cost. It's a subscription model. You're just paying for the power that's produced by your portion of a solar farm, and you're guaranteed a 10% discount compared to what you would have paid the utility. So again, there's nothing that you have to pay for. You don't put anything on your home, and you're guaranteed a discount compared to what you're paying now for your electricity. So this is considered the most affordable and accessible type of solar out there. And this matters especially to underserved and marginalized communities who have historically been disproportionately affected by climate change, disproportionately affected by air pollution, and disproportionately locked out of the benefits of clean energy. So Solstice is not a builder of these farms. We're not in the hardware business, we're in the software business. We have software that takes care of every step of the customer experience for these new type of community solar farms. And this is a market that has been more than doubling each of the last 4 years it's been around, and it's already a $16 billion industry. And our software does everything from enrolling customers to managing the billing and the crediting and the integration with their utility accounts so they get the right credits on their bills. And our contracts are with the solar developers who build the projects. They pay us 2 revenue streams. We get paid for every household we plug into the farm and every household that we manage per year on our software platform. So it's kind of an enterprise SaaS plus acquisition business model. We have worked on 25 projects throughout New York and Massachusetts mostly. This is a map of our project area. And we've partnered with some of the largest wind and solar developers in the country on these projects. So some of them are listed here. And in the past couple years, we've been in the market. We've generated over $1 million in revenue. Just in 2020 alone, we have booked contracts for 1.5 million in revenue by 2020 and 2.7 million revenue by 2021. And I'm happy to report that we have signed additional contracts in just March and April of this year. So there is plenty of project pipeline despite the hard stuff that's happening in the economy right now. We maintain a pretty high rating with our customers and our employees, and we're aiming to grow as quickly as this industry is growing. Our team is poised to make this a success. Our background, it comes from MIT in engineering, as well as in sales and marketing. Our previous investors include the Department of Energy, Echoing Green, Techstars, VCs that support women entrepreneurs, as well as other incubators that have supported us in our early days. Right now, we're raising a convertible note. We've actually gotten 1.1 million in commitments from some of the incredible supporters you'll see below: Total Energy Ventures, Elemental Accelerator, and other VCs that support women entrepreneurs. Our aim is to use this funding to expand to additional service areas. We are planning an expansion to the state of Illinois later this year in the Chicago area. And we are also planning to additionally engineer some software features that will make our software easier to even use for all the customers involved. We're imagining an America that looks like this. This is one of the projects that we had in Massachusetts. It used to be a former landfill, and now it's a community solar farm. And right next door is the recycling center. So people used to go to the recycling center and look at a landfill. Now they get to look at a farm that they and their neighbors are enjoying at no upfront costs, and they're saving money on their electricity bill. We're imagining an America where everyone can get solar power regardless of their income or regardless of what type of roof they have. So thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steph. Maybe you also want to turn on your camera so we can also see you. And Mar, would you like to go first?
Yeah, Steph, that was a great presentation. Thank you. And I love your mission. I think it's super cool. So thank you very much. I have a couple of questions, and one of them is regarding the market. My understanding is you're selling to these developers, or I'd love to hear a little bit more about that market. How many consumers are actually getting their energy this way right now? How fast is that growing? And is there anything you could do, or anyone, I guess, to increase that number of consumers, which will directly impact you at the end of the day? The second question I had, if you can, is around acquisition. I mean, part of your business is acquiring these consumers. I think, what is your edge for acquiring these people? What sort of secret weapon do you have that makes that more efficient? Your software looks beautiful from the slide already, so I'm not going to ask you about that.
All right, thank you. I'll answer those questions in the order that you asked them. So the market, I mentioned this is
Actually,
really
let's have also Stephen ask question, and then we'll come to you. So you'll have 4 to 5 minutes to respond to everyone.
Sure.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, that's great. Hi, Steph. Just a couple of quick questions. Also thinking about the ones that Mar had, but I was really fascinated by the fact that you talked about being able to deliver 10% savings to the traditional energy delivery for the customers. And I mean, that's just fantastic. And I think once the market figures that out, I wonder if you might have a success problem, which is that, you know, who doesn't want to save 10%? And obviously we're consuming a ton of energy. And so is there a potential capacity problem, which would be a very high class problem to have? But is there a point at which you've got more customer demand for this kind of energy than you actually have PV panels to provision? So that's one. And then two, I mean, this is really an innovative approach. Are there other folks out there that are doing anything like this? What does the competitive landscape look like?
And Steph, I have 2 questions. Good questions were asked by Mar and Stephen. So my questions are, tell me a little bit about the cap table, who within the organization. I want to know what percentage of the company is owned by the founders versus the investors and the money you've raised so far. And also, one thing I'm not clear about are the farms. Who owns the farms? And how is that relationship with the developer that develops the farm? Is there a long-term lease? Is there a situation under which the farm can basically change ownership, and as a result, the people who are benefiting from it and then they've signed up for this service may not be able to benefit in the way that you are, in a sense, committing to them at this point?
All right, a lot of fun questions to answer in a few minutes. So I'm going to do my best to answer them all. Acquisition secret sauce. So typically what a company will do when they sell solar is they'll do these archaic methods they've used for the last 20 years. So they're going to cold call you. They're going to show up at your door and ask you to buy solar. They're going to yell at you in Home Depot as you're walking by them. And that is the tried and true way of selling solar for the last 20 years. We don't do that because that's stranger to stranger contact. It's effective at 1 to 2% conversion rates, and it's really hard to scale. What we do is we use network effects and word of mouth. We use individual ambassadors and community organizations who spread the word to their communities on our behalf, and we share revenue with them. And even right now in this COVID period, this revenue sharing agreement has become an income generating opportunity for small businesses and community organizations and individuals who have lost their income, and they want to help us spread the words to their friends and neighbors. So this is unique to what we do, and it's our secret sauce. In terms of the market size, this market has more than doubled in each of the last 4 years. It's only been around for the last 4 years. If you've never heard of community solar, you're not alone, because it's really new. But the Green Tech Media Research Institution in Energy says that it's going to be an $80 to $120 billion industry by 2030. So it's going to continue to more than double each year, mirroring the fast growth of the solar industry writ large, even with a blip like the economic effects of COVID. In terms of the competitive landscape, there are other software companies that will provide software that'll tell you how your solar share is doing. They'll bill you and things like that, but they don't really have the acquisition as part of their offering. And developers really won't hire you unless you can go acquire customers, because developers cannot build their project unless they pre-lease the project to subscribers. They don't get their financing in solar until they get all the customers. So that's why acquisition is so important, and why actually our competitors have even tried to hire us to do acquisition for them, which may be a sign. In terms of the cap table, the founders currently own 50% of the company, and employees earn 15% of the company, and investors own the rest. Our cap table includes some folks who invested in our seed round at the end of December 2018. So Total Energy Ventures, Sustain VC, Techstars Ventures, and some other ventures that support women entrepreneurs. I am running out of time, but the 10% savings, Stephen, you asked about, it sounds like, where is this free money coming from? How is this? It sounds too good to be true. And the idea is that typically the solar developers are selling their power to the utilities at the wholesale rate. Now, with this new type of solar, they get to sell power directly to consumers at the retail rate. So they're making a ton of money, and the 10% discount they're giving to customers is merely the margin they want to give to you to induce you to sign up so they can charge you a retail price for electricity. So 10% is actually where the entire market has converged. But in terms of being a victim of our own success, it's actually people are much lazier than that, if you will. Like, they sign up with you, as long as they're happy with you, they'll stay. Our churn rate is 2%. And the industry churn rate is 10%. So we've proven that if you treat customers and give that really well, and you give them a delightful experience, that they're actually pretty loyal to you, because inertia is a powerful force when it comes to your electricity bill. I think I answered all the questions. Is there anything else outstanding? I think I have 60 seconds left.
Anything else?
Well, maybe I can say a comment, Steph. I think it'd be great to add on your pitch about a little more background on the market and how fast it's growing, because it will make it much stronger.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Thank you.
Yeah.
Steph, thank you so much. I have no doubt that one of us or all three of us will be in touch for a more intimate meeting and learning more about your business.
Thank you so much.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks
Congrats on building a great business.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steph.
Thanks, Steph.
Jenna, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steph. So next up, we have Sylvia with Cantika, and she's joining us from Houston and is doing some amazing work in the personal fitness space. So welcome, Cantika.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the great intro. Let me just start.
Can I
the
please,
video.
Sylvia, ask you to please have your camera on as you share your
Yes,
screen?
exactly.
Thank
That's
you.
what it's still stopped by the host. So
Okay.
I think you guys need start my video. I got it. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Now I'm here.
Good.
Let me just still share the screen of the deck. 1 second. Okay, perfect. You guys still have the video and the deck?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, then I'm ready to get started if you guys are.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, cool. So, hey everybody, I'm Sylvia Kamshop and I'm the founder of Cantika, what is basically Uber for personal trainers. So wait 1 second, somehow the sharing isn't working. I think it's not shared. Your screen sharing.
Actually, we can see your screen.
Yeah, but it doesn't let me tap through it. I'm using my husband's laptop because mine just broke down and I don't know what okay, got it. So sorry. So we are currently raising 1 million at a 5 million valuation. We already raised 320,000 and one of our previous investors just committed to take a lead at the 1 million raise. So super exciting. The personal training market is totally broken. So in my prior life, I worked pretty crazy hours as an M&A attorney, and I always try to sneak in this 1 hour for myself and something fit and healthy. And I tried to schedule a trainer to my office gym. And I Googled and I found somebody like the guy at the right-hand corner, half naked, selfie, so super intimidating. I was like, how could I ever schedule him to my office gym? And then you have Anne. Anne is 45 years old and had 3 kids. And Anne isn't a size 0 or 2, what everybody is marketing to. Anne is a size 10 and super super intimidated by gyms. And she told me she feels like a driver without a driver's license. And she just wants to train at the convenience and privacy of her home. So that is where we at Cantika come in. How does it work? So with only a few taps on our app, you can schedule a highly vetted trainer to any place you want. Your office gym, your home, apartment gym, park. It's super easy. So with COVID, we decided pretty quickly, main priority, keep the trainer safe, keep the client safe. We stopped the one-on-one in-person, and within 2 weeks, we implemented a live one-on-one virtual training feature. And to be honest, I'm a very in-person type person, so I was highly skeptical, but did my sessions, and it's very, very impressive. So what ends up happening is, as a live video streaming, the trainer corrects your posture, they hold you accountable, they keep pushing. So you just can't just eat a pizza, do your nails and leave, like if you Google a workout video. It's still the one-on-one attention, but you don't have to share gate code. There's no security risk. It makes it so much easier, and it's even a better price point. And now that things keep opening up, I mean, Atlanta even opened up the gyms again. So we do a safe distance training at home in the cities where it's allowed. And if not, we do virtual. So it really pick your level of comfort, where you feel comfortable. And it just made the product so much better. And at the moment, we are selling still 70% virtual and 30% in-home distance under compliance with all the guidelines. So we had an amazing growth. January last year to this year, we had 450%. We started really strong in the year, then COVID hit, so we had to stop the growth for the 2 weeks. We implemented the live virtual training feature. Last month, already 71 sessions virtually. And then this month, already now with 17 days, we had a 45% growth again. So I think we should hit 69% this month with the virtual training feature, what I'm super excited about. And yeah, so what is the business model? It's very Uber-like. So we take a commission and average $15. We have a really strong CAC between 50 and 100 and an LTV of 800. Clients really stick with it. They love the experience and they are super committed with it. And so why am I doing this? I always wanted to make fitness available to everybody and to solve my problem, basically everyone's problem, to be healthier and happier and mentally just in a better stage of mind. And I think we now are more than ever in a position with the addition of the virtual feature to really achieve that goal, because the drive point is now tremendously lower and it's really available to not everybody, but to a really broad demographic. And we can sell a personal training session in Manhattan where the average training cost is $100, now live virtually for 20. So I think our goal to make the US healthier and happier way closer now with the new implementations, and I'm really, really excited about that. I think I don't see the timer. Did I run out on my clock? At least I did.
Yes, you are out of time. You're out of time, but if you need 20 more seconds to wrap it up, please go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a huge market, $15 billion market, and the upsell potential is gigantic. So we have a big demographic in the 45 plus female, and they trust us, they love us, and you can pretty much upsell anything. I mean, there's nutrition, you have apparel, you have the stretching, you have the massages. I think if you would build a strong service culture and target to their needs, it's limitless options we have. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your questions. I'm sorry if I went above my time. I did the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Great job.
Thank you. Okay, stop share. Back again.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mar, would you like to go first?
Sure. Hi, Sylvia. Thank you for your presentation. I'm actually, we are the first investor in a company called Active, which was one of the first online fitness.
I met with Ethan. Ethan was a colleague of my husband, and I flew to New York to meet him because he impressed me so much.
Awesome.
So we are friends.
Yeah, it's great. And I also use a lot of online programs, so
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the space. My question for you is around the trainers, and it seems like you have this one-on-one relationship with your trainer. I'd be interested on how do you vet these trainers? How do you make sure that they're, you know, a certain quality? And also, what is this retention of these trainers on your platform? The other question is about leakage. I think when you have this one-on-one platforms, there's a high risk of the relationship getting off platform and you not getting the fee for that service. So maybe you can talk about that. And finally, I'd be really curious on your economics. It sounds, I think I heard $20 an hour, but I'm not 100% sure. So maybe you can tell me how much the consumer like me pay, how much it goes to the trainer. And also it looks like you're selling per sessions rather than a subscription. So I'd be curious of why that choice.
Okay, thank you. Stephen.
Yeah, hi, Sylvia. I'm interested in the world you see. You talked about making, you know, the country healthier. You know, what does that look like? What's the, you know, at the end state and the highest success of your business, what does that world look like? Is one question. And then my second question, which relates to that, has to do with the boundary of, you know, who you can access based on your pricing and your economics. You know, who can and who can't afford to access this, and how does that relate to that first question of your vision of, you know, where we end up?
Yeah, good question.
All right. And Sylvia, great progress. I met with Sylvia a few months ago, and definitely you made good progress since then. So a couple of questions that I have, and my apologies if you touched on them and I missed. One is, what is your cost to acquire a new customer? And you said your LTV is $800. I wonder what's the cost to acquire a customer that will spend $800, and how has that LTV changed in the last few months? And also, how will you be spending the money that you are looking to raise?
Great question.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, then I'm going to kick off the answer. So vetting of the trainers, that was one of my main priorities because 90% are female clients. So I was for a long time the service hotline, and that's the #1 question. So we background check them. They have to be insured. They have to be certified. We still interview them via Zoom, and they have to sign an independent contractor agreement. So at the end, do all those 5 steps is pretty hard for a trainer. So we take 1 out of 10. And that also goes into the other question of the leakage and the off-platform use. So we really hardly ever see it. And I believe one of the reasons is we are pretty involved in the onboarding, and we stay very involved. So we have a very strong, I would see ourselves as a service company. I want everybody to be 10-star happy. There's no 5-star, 10-star happy. And we are very involved with both the trainers to treat them respectfully and pay them accordingly, as well as with the clients. And somehow I believe that avoids the off-platform use. And I ask them, like, why don't you go off-platform? I know you have the number. And they're like, why should we? We trust you. We know we can switch between personal training and yoga. We know you take care of the payment. We know we have a 3-hour cancellation window. If we go off the app, the trainer will say, no, 24 hours, the cancellation policy. And sometimes they don't like the trainer anymore, and all of that stuff what goes around it. And they like having us as the service hotline they can always order. So it's really a couple of, and we have a lot of older demographic, they like this personal attention, somehow concierge behind it. like many reasons going in it, but we really, I think we see it way less than other marketplaces. What is also somehow, I think the way I started the company and I treated everybody. And I think it's scalable. Our service team has the same beliefs I do. And yeah, that was the off-platform use. And then you have the why we do sessions. That is a very good question, because 90% jump straight into a package. They don't even want to do the single session, because I think in their mind it's this: I made my commitment to be healthier. So a single session is useless, right? They feel like I have to do this 12 sessions thing, and so it's a must to do the subscription. We just so far we only raised the 320, and I focused more on growing. And with a big around 100% subscription, it's screaming subscription. We just didn't do it yet because I thought numbers up, and then we can implement all of that nice stuff. But they're asking for it. Yeah, how does this healthier world look like? I mean, I still believe, my belief was that a lot of people would want to change something, but they really feel intimidated by gyms. And I talk still every day with a couple of the clients, and they tell me they can't go there. Like in Orange Theory, it all screams like sexy and hip and loud. And I don't know, they say like they feel looked at, and there's not really an option out there, because if they Google, how do they know, is the trainer vetted? What is the background of them? And so I think we really deliver a tool what isn't out there. And then price point wise, so the virtual, you can now book, for example, in New York, a Houston trainer who we pay half of the price of a Manhattan trainer, what enables us to go down to $20. And we still make 30% on each session. But that is, I know not everybody can afford it, but at least we are getting closer there. Before, a session was $50, and in New York, in Texas, and in New York it was $90. But now we at least have the option. If you really want it, we have a $20 option. And that is easier to carve out, I think, out the monthly spend. And what we did is we now have a train the world. So we have a trainer, a Zumba from Brazil, and a mom from India. So we really opened the world and with new experiences. And I think that makes it more accessible for a lot of people. What before we were this luxury brand, and I really think we can cater more needs now than we did before. The cost to acquire a new customer, on a non-scalable basis, it's only $50. So we found a really cheap channel. What isn't scalable, I'm brutally honest, what is Thumbtack and Bark, all those lead generation platforms, we know it's not scalable. So on AdWords, we are at the moment at $100 cost of customer acquisition, but we are working hard, and I truly believe we can bring it down to 50. And the 800 is the spend. So out of the 800, we make between 200, 250. So we still make money. We're not losing money. And yeah, but we did a lot on SEO since we spoke last. So we got now in some cities the first page at least go for this month is like really the 3 first places. That will be a game changer, because people search Houston personal trainer, awesome personal trainer. And if you have that, we are now US-wide available. We have 8 cities with in-home trainers. It's easier now to rank for SEO, and we are working hard on it. So that will also help with the tech, I think. Yeah, and spending the money of the raise, a third will be tech. There's still a lot of improvements. So the live virtual is working, but you can make it even more smooth, I believe. I mean, it was a two-week fix, and people are booking it like crazy, what I'm happy about. But I think there's still, you can have some underlying music and like more, how do you really make them to rebook? I mean, there's a lot what I want to do on the tech side. And then obviously ramping up team to be able to scale and marketing.
So thank you so much, Sylvia. Great business, and you've done a good job during this pandemic. Keep it going and improving it. So good job. And again, I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jenna.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. That was fantastic. And now I'd love to hand over to Elise with Praxis Labs. She's based in San Francisco and doing some amazing work around virtual reality and bias reduction. Over to Elise. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can everyone see my slides and my video?
Yes, and please have your camera on.
I believe I do.
Yes, you do. You
Okay,
do. It was my
perfect.
fault. You're good.
No, not a problem. Wonderful. Well, I'm Elise Smith, and I'm the CEO of Praxis Labs. We're a learning and development company focused on advancing inclusion and belonging in the workplace to help companies become more equitable, but also more productive and profitable. I want to start by talking about diversity and inclusion. These are topics that are at the forefront of our national conversation, with movements like Me Too and Black Lives Matter mobilizing millions, customers, employees who are no longer tolerating incidents of bias or discrimination in the places that they work or the places that they frequent every day. Now, companies know this. That's why they're seeing diversity and inclusion as both a challenge and an opportunity. Firms that fail at diversity and inclusion run the risk of turnover due to bias or discrimination, which costs companies $64 billion every year. And those firms that are more diverse, that are more inclusive, well, they're 43% more likely to see above average profits. That's why companies are currently spending $8 billion every year to upskill their workforces on diversity and inclusion training alone. The challenge is that leaders believe these trainings are falling short. They're not moving the needle. 63% of leaders will tell you that they believe their trainings to be ineffective. That's where Praxis Labs comes in. We're doing diversity and inclusion training fundamentally differently. After speaking with over 150 chief diversity officers and learning and development leads, what we heard was that they are looking actively for a new solution that's engaging, scalable, and actually effective. Using the power of virtual reality, we're able to deliver just that. In VR, we let employees take on an identity, background, or perspective different than themselves, walk a mile in someone else's shoes through a workplace narrative in which they experience an incident of bias or discrimination themselves or as a bystander. We're engaging employees, helping to build that empathy and that perspective-taking muscle, while also helping them develop a repertoire of responses that will, when incidents inevitably happen. If you want to give feedback, stand and deliver in VR and do so. If you want to interrupt that meeting, what does that look like? You have to speak it out. Now, we pair our VR with a learning and reflection platform to create an end-to-end solution. On the platform, employees are guided through a reflective process, thinking through the decisions they made in VR, how comfortable they were making them. We provide content, language, and definitions to give them, to describe the patterns of bias they experienced in VR, share how they show up in real life. We also ask them if they've seen those patterns of bias in their workplace. We understand what their feelings of inclusion and belonging are with their current employer. And from just a 30-minute training, we're able to measure the efficacy at the individual level, but also provide organizations insight into their culture of inclusion, potential hotspots, and provide recommendations to solve them. Now, we're targeting that $1.6 billion Fortune 1000 companies spend on external D&I training every year. This number is growing as well, as we've seen a doubling down on D&I work. We're going to market as a B2B SaaS-based company, selling yearly subscriptions for employees. We've already seen a lot of really powerful traction. We haven't raised any equity funding. We've been funded by student fellowships and grants thus far, but we've already had paying clients of our first learning module, which we've deployed. We have over $200,000 in revenue. We've seen powerful engagement and efficacy metrics. 91% of employees are excited to opt into that next training, which is uncommon for D&I trainings. We've also seen really powerful results in terms of the levers we're moving around empathy and behavior change. Now, I know we're the right team to bring Praxis to market. I have a background developing ed tech products at IBM Watson, leading B2B sales and ed tech partnerships, as well as while I was at New Schools Venture Fund, I was finding, funding, and coaching entrepreneurs, solving challenges within diversity and inclusion. My co-founder, Heather, she's worked at NASA on synthetic and computer vision, at Microsoft on the AR HoloLens, has a background in data analysis and computer science. Melina, she actually builds our VR, and she's worked at Stanford's Virtual Human Interaction Lab, one of the preeminent labs that builds and researches VR bias, empathy, and behavior change. We're raising $1.5 million to bring on additional team members to help us both build and launch a suite of trainings, which we'll release later this year, both remotely and available to deploy out of office places later. Now, we are Praxis Labs. We are so excited to invite you to join us on this journey. As women of color, we bring our lived experiences to bear in every day at our work. And we invite you to join us in our mission to increase empathy, reduce bias, and create sustained behavior change for individuals and organizations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elise. Great presentation. I have a lot to talk about, but let's go to Mar first.
Great energy, Elise. I just want to go and work for you, you know.
Thank you. Come on, Mar.
After this pitch,
love
let's
to work
go.
with you.
And I'm so happy that you're working on it with your team. You know, it's great. I actually had Elise in my class about a year ago, so a little more than a year ago. So anyways, okay, so my question is really about the product itself. It'd be great to get a sense of how do you guys create the content to make sure that in fact it's effective. I'm sure that, you know, the different situations, how do you position them, etc., will have an impact on ultimately whether people can overcome their bias. I'm guessing, I actually do believe that VR is much more effective than other methods. I'm just wondering how do you guys make sure, you know, you guys are the best at doing that. Thank you.
Steven.
I'll jump in. So I think two things, Elise. Great presentation. One of the things I loved is you mentioned, you talked to 150 chief diversity officers. And so I'd love to see that kind of depth of customer discovery. And I'm wondering where you feel you are in terms of certainty of product now, right? Like, so, for example, you talked about switching persona, right? As a training experience. But it occurred to me just as you were talking, what would the world be like if I actually had to pick a persona other than my own during the application and interview process, right? That would really level the playing field in terms of, you know, potentially in terms of bias. And I'm just wondering, like, you know, given that you've spoken to so many potential customers, are there other, you know, directions for the product that you think are, you know, not represented in what you're doing now that you want to explore? Or do you feel like you've heard so much that you're pretty locked in, you know exactly what the market wants, and you're going to build into that? So that's one. And then my other question just has to do with, you know, VR generally and the associated economics, because there's hardware here and deployment of that is added cost. And does that provide friction, you know, to rolling this out to the market? Or do you find a way that, you know, this scales very simply?
Thank you. So, you know, to me, this is really an interesting business that can go beyond just dealing with some of the risks that potentially companies are facing, but even more importantly, to help companies understand how much stronger they can be when they do actually invest and focus and care about diversity and inclusion. Because a lot of people today, a lot of companies, they think about this as an area of risk, not as an area of opportunity. And I think that mindset has to shift. So I really feel this is something that, you know, this is one of those businesses that if you're successful, you're not just making money, but you're offering a great service. A few questions. One is, how many employees do you have now? You mentioned that you've had $200,000 in revenue so far. How long has that been? How long have you been in business? You mentioned that you're looking to raise $1.5 million. Are you looking for a price round, or are you doing a convertible note? And if it's a convertible note, what's the valuation? evaluation cap. And then my last question, how do you measure the efficacy of your program versus other more traditional training programs that are available out there?
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. There's a lot of
Sure.
questions to answer in 5 minutes, but I'm going to try my best. So I'll try to answer them kind of not necessarily in order because some of them might be related. To start, I'd love to talk about kind of this solution. So Stefan, you asked about, how sure are we on this being what we're targeting? And so you're exactly right. We've done so much market research with our end users, our clients, and the employees who go through these trainings. And really, there's just this frustration with the ineffectiveness of current trainings out there in the market, and that they're not seeing a change. I think to underline that, there's this need to, we have the data that says diversity is better, that inclusive work cultures are better, they're more innovative, they make better decisions, they're more creative, like just it goes on. And so clearly that is not enough to change behaviors. And there's a ton of social psychology research around how VR, enables perspective taking and empathy. And so when we think about kind of different ways we could use the solution, there are a ton of different products we can develop and build on. But we do, our clients are excited to partner with us because they do believe that, not only by upskilling kind of full workforces on how to work across difference, how to lead across difference, how to understand the perspectives of others, how to show up as an ally, actually interrupt meetings, give feedback. Like that's how we're going to actually make a difference and kind of move the needle forward. When we have people who want to and understand why we need to do this work, but also have the tools and responses and behaviors kind of practice to do so. So we're starting there definitely, but there's definitely a suite of different ways we could go moving forward, as well as different parts of the market and industries we can target, from education, healthcare, police department. Like the list is long. In terms of the product, so the question was a kind of around content. How are we thinking about that? I would say that we have really worked to make sure that our solution is ethical. Like we're here for impact first, and we know it's a profitable business because of the impact we're able to see. We have partnerships with research institutions who developed that research, that help us develop that research-backed content. We have a suite of research advisors, Dr. Valerie Purdy-Greenaway out of Columbia, who literally worked on stereotype threat, has been doing this work for years and years. They have helped us not only design our curriculum, but also the way in which we deliver the trainings, so that we're not, accidentally reaffirming stereotypes, that we're actually moving the needle in the attitudes, mindsets, and behaviors we know we need to. In terms of kind of the hardware and those questions, the pandemic has actually forced us to accelerate our product development in a way that allows us to be able to deploy remotely, which our clients are needing right now. And that allows us to really kind of remove some of that scalability barrier, because we're able to deploy on a desktop application, on a smartphone application that can have varying levels of immersion depending on different setups available, but we also have that solution that can be deployed in the workplace, and kind of the higher quality headsets that our clients don't feel friction about buying. So many of them have VR in their learning and development roadmaps already, and the cost of the headsets has gone down significantly. That they bought a set of Apple iPads. It's very similar to buying a set of headsets. In terms of our size, our team, where we're at, it's just been the co-founders. We're all students. So as Mar mentioned, we were in her class. So this is all very new. We're very early. We had our summer off and we're able to pilot. And so that revenue is coming out of those pilots that we were doing over the summer, and some that ran into the fall. We're raising on a convertible note. Happy to discuss more details of that process. It really also is new. We're really just kicking this process off, and so this was a great opportunity to do so. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I want to say. Overall, we have been so positively overwhelmed by not only the experience of developing the solution that was super exciting, actually being on site, seeing employees engage in and give both positive qualitative feedback, but feedback on the platform, just like the level of excitement about the solution. But I think overall, we've been even more excited about the impact data that we're seeing. We're increasing empathy. We're helping people feel more comfortable and confident identifying and responding to incidents of bias. And so we're just really excited to kind of launch our suite of trainings later this year and scale the impact that we've already started to see. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much and congrats. And you really are doing meaningful work. Thank you. Jenna.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Elise. Next up, we have Tinia, who's joining us from New York with Renewable. Who's doing some amazing work transforming food waste into plant-based fertilizers. Over to you, Tinia.
Great. Can you see my screen?
Yes. And there you are. We can see you too.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us here today. Really excited to share what we're doing here at Renewable, located in New York City, and how we see food waste being a mechanism to decarbonize the global fertilizer supply chain, as well as enable more organic production of specialty crops in an efficient and effective way so that more people have access to it at a price-effective standpoint. And so what I've noticed since 2012, New York City was spending $77 million to export food waste to places like China, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. We now spend roughly $186 million. And so I saw one aspect of the food system or the food supply chain ripe for an area of disruption, which is helping food distributors and food manufacturers more sustainably and affordably divert their food waste in a way that is within close proximity to where they operate. On the other side of the food system, we also saw specialty crop soilless farms in indoor farms, greenhouses, and you now see this burgeoning niche within vertical farming really struggle being able to grow organic produce. And the margins are so attractive, anywhere between 40 to 100% to grow the organic produce. The problem is that current organic fertilizer incumbents make it incredibly challenging to do so. They either clog their systems and therefore require more time, cost, and labor to manage that. And they're also the organic fertilizer market, the products in that category are very fragmented and the manufacturing process is very inconsistent. So our innovation, what we do to help farms is essentially take produce waste from these food manufacturers and we receive it for free as a raw material over a 3-year supply agreement. We turn it into a sterile, solid fertilizer. And ultimately, our intellectual property is what is called a nutrient delivery system. So what you see in box number 2 is hardware that's installed at the soilless farm, and it enables for the pellets that you see in box 1 to be turned into a liquid nutrient concentrate that is all sourced from the vegetative waste that is sterile and can be recirculated throughout these farms so that soilless farms can grow organic soil quality produce in a way that is more effective for them. And in the long term, the benefits to this type of deployment, this type of way of growing, which we term it as organic cycling science, it's cheaper and easier for them to ship and store or have shipped and stored this solid fertilizer. We're 2 times more cost effective than the current incumbent or substitute, which are mineral salts, incredibly petroleum intensive to extract, mine, and distribute around the world. And then lastly, the biggest crux to not allowing farms to grow organically currently is because of the biofilm, because of the clogging created by the microbes in the food waste. We've been doing this for a long time. We've invested by bootstrapping up of $1.3 million to date. So we know the science of uniquely taking specific food waste blends and making it compatible for their very sterile system. Now, often we get asked, how do we make sure that we have enough food waste as a supply to deliver and scale to the soilless farms that we sell to? And we make sure that we have these supply contracts secured over a 3-year agreement, of which currently we have right now, and it allows us to scale up to the 5 years of our growth. Our current traction is because we've established this brand for the last 5 years. We started going to market in 2016, but we've been doing bootstrap R&D since 2012. So within the next 18 months, we plan to hit a sales goal of $2 million. Of that, $300,000 has been secured in contracts. There's $500,000 in verbal commitment. And the other thing I should mention that I failed to mention earlier is that not only do we allow farms to grow organically from a food waste supply that's sourced for free, but we also allow the farms to be able to use their own produce waste from production and recirculate it as a free fertilizer source for their organic production. This is a growing market right now. Globally, it's a TAM of $10 billion. We see that in the US valued at $3.2 billion. And by replicating our process, our facility in New York, California, Texas, Illinois, and Florida, there's a market worth $125 million. Selling to farms that grow specialty crops such as leafy greens, tomatoes, berries, and even hemp. So we have an amazing team and have really done this in an incredibly lean and resilient time. Our team has at least 30 years of experience with other startups. We have first-degree customer relationships as well as with industry influencers, and we have enough experience to show that on the food waste, we know how to take food waste and turn it into an economical product. Look forward to deep diving on details with you.
Thank you, Tina. I really appreciate it. Interesting business. Mar.
Thank you, Tina. That's Tina, this is great. It's almost like the perfect product. I have some questions more about the market. I don't know, how many soilless farms are out there, how much of our food is actually coming from those farms rather than other types of farms, and whether your technology could be used rather than the traditional nitrates based fertilizers that people use in big farming. So I'd be curious, and also if the answer is no, then have you looked as to how that whether more R&D could get you there? And I saw that you have some hardware that you place in these farms. I wonder if it didn't look very expensive, but I'm wondering if there's some sort of upfront cost that the farm has to get over to get that into their system or not. Thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, hi, Tina. I really enjoyed the presentation. It's exciting what you're working on. Two quick questions. One, it's fantastic that you're an off-taker of waste from others and that you're able to get those inputs for free today. I'm wondering what portion of your unit economics that represents. In case there's some future point at which others start going after that off-taker supply. How much of that could you sustain if it becomes a cost? My other question is just about your cap table. You've been bootstrapping this for a while, and have you raised capital previously? And if so, what does that look like? And would love to follow up later and learn more about terms of your deal.
Tina, I really like your business. In fact, a few years ago, my family and we visited a farm that employed some of the techniques that you are employing, and that was in Mauritius. And it was really an interesting business. A couple of questions that I have. One is about, I'm assuming in farming, I'm not that familiar with it, but I'm assuming in farming, typically when you think about fertilizer of any kind, you worry about the impact it can have on yield, basically how much, how effective it is in increasing yield of, if it's not acreage, it is, how much you can get from that farm per season or per cycle basis. So that's one question I have, is that how does your fertilizer do versus what is available traditionally? And then the second thing is that, are you, when you start producing this at scale, how does the cost compare to other solutions available out there?
All great questions. Let me just finish this last note. Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start off with Mar's question in terms of the breakdown of our segmentation in terms of our market. So in terms of soilless farms, based on USDA census, there's at least 7,000 soilless farms, and those are deemed as growing in covered crops, right? Growing covered crops. We segment it based on small farms, so anywhere less than between 5,000 square feet and upwards of like 20,000 square feet. Between 20 and upwards of 50,000 square feet, we see that as the medium segment for us. And beyond that is enterprise level. So most of our current customer pipeline is within the medium to small. However, what we've seen is of the enterprise level farms where they're looking to get that forward thinking, that additional kind of branding by being the most sustainable and practicing the most cost-effective sustainable best practices, they see our second solution, which is being able to take their existing production waste, the stems, the root waste, and incorporating that into a free nutrient source for them. I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer, and it's a data point that we've been constantly trying to refine and approximate, but how much food the soilless farms for the specialty crops that we're focused on, how much do they produce in the US? I'm not sure. I can say that at least right now, the US is importing 25% of organic produce. And I felt that that data point was pretty meaningful as well. To Stefan's point, also to Mara's point, the expense of the hardware. So you're right, the hardware is really affordable. And what we do is when we set up these farm trial agreements, we do it in such a way where we're absorbing the cost of the hardware so that the farm is doing a 1 to 2 month trial. And this kind of also gives way of what our sales cycle is. There's no cost to the farm. Essentially, once they show 2 sales triggers for us, one is there, if there's no loss of yield per their current competing or incumbent fertilizer. And the second thing is making sure that our system, the nutrient delivery system, is able to meet the water chemistry of the needs for the crops that they're growing. So as long as we can meet those 2 trigger points or KPIs, then the farm trial agreement turns into a sales contract with similar revenue model as a subscription. What portion of food waste makes up our unit economics? So to Stefan's point, so very little. What we see as if there's a risk, and I don't see that within the next 5 years, of us paying for food waste. What we've seen in the marketplace right now in terms of entrants competing for food waste, whether they're turning it into a consumable good or they're using it into like imperfect produce, for example, or imperfect harvest and selling it through CSAs or through downstream customers, we're really focusing on the residual of production waste that has very low value. So think of potato peelings, think of carrot waste. Unless there's a company that turns that pulverized into a powder and then a food ingredient, which has less value. Either way, our margins are able to support that risk. Right now, our current gross margins are 55%. However, phase 2, we scale to upwards of margins of 75%. And that's especially with the economies of replicating our facilities beyond one space. Currently, right now, our facility is in upstate New York. With regards to our cap table, so we've been very resilient because a lot of the money in the past we've hauled but on getting grants, and there's roughly $500,000 that we've been shortlisted for additional grants. So right now, me as the sole founder, I have 53% of the company. We've been funded and are currently raising a round of $750,000 as convertible note. We have 250 still remaining, and we're circling investors right now that allow us to raise beyond the 250. So the deal right now is with a 4 million cap and 750 as our target, certainly keeping the subscription open. We really see, based on our projections, hitting our goal of reaching profitability within 13 months. To the last point of Payam's question on impact on yield. So our main selling point there, and we're still measuring impact on yield on various crop types. We're also measuring what we see as a selling point, which is enabling the farm to reuse their water. So therefore their water consumption cost is also reduced. Secondly, any nitrate, so like any residual kind of chemical or nutrient that would normally be discharged or disposed of, that's also a cost and kind of environmental mandate that's being watched by environmental groups as well. So we're still measuring that. However, going directly to your point, the impact on yield is comparable to other organics. I will admit that we'll never be able to exceed the growth, end harvest mass of a leafy lettuce than mineral salts. And that's simply because the potency of mineral salts is far higher than organics. But as long as we're getting comparable, that's what we try to keep to.
Thank you so much. congrats on a great business that's hopefully making the world a better place.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much for the
All
opportunity.
right. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Jenna.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tania. Next up, and our last set of entrepreneurs, we have Cameron and Mark with Flash Forest.
We have a guy?
Yeah, we have two of them and one. They're joining us from Canada with Flash Forest, and they're doing some amazing work in the space of drones and forestation. So over to you, Cameron.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to do the lion's share of the talking just to make this streamlined. Okay. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Sorry, I just ran into a slight issue there. I'm just going to just full screen this. Okay, so I'm Cameron Jones. I'm from Toronto. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and a co-founder of Flash Forest. This is Canada's first and only drone reforestation company. And we're seeking right now through this raise $160,000 to fill out our angel raise. Just so you're aware, every single year, the planet loses about a net of 7 billion trees. To put that into context, that's about the equivalent of all of Switzerland in tree cover being lost net year after year. So that's extremely unsustainable. Right now, we're at about 15% of the forest of the world's original forest cover. That's what remains intact. So what we've developed is a very, very really cool piece of technology. We've merged drones with artificial intelligence, GIS mapping software, and our own hardware, as well as our own pod that we've developed and we filed a provisional patent for, which allows us to really radically scale the rate of reforestation globally. Right now, with our current prototype, we plant about 10 to 20,000 pods per day per drone. We're going to get that to the point where we can have between 3 to 5 drones managed per individual, which could put us up to an upper bracket of about 100,000 tree pods being planted a day. Additionally, we're shooting for an average of about 8 different species because biodiversity is key to us. We want to ensure that we're not planting monocultures, but we're trying to restore ecosystems to their natural state. Additionally, over the next 5 years, especially by year 3, we're going to try to bring our costs down to about 75 cents Canadian per tree, which is going to make us very, very cost competitive. Right now, the industry standard in Canada is about $2.20 per tree planted. So we really want to bring down the cost so it's economical, not just for us to do it in Canada, but pretty much anywhere where there is a need. And we're also developing software simultaneously, which will allow us to collect more data than really exists in this domain. We have a pretty phenomenal team. At the head of it is Bryce Jones. He's our CEO. He's actually in the field right now, working with our latest prototype of the drone, and we're planting, I think, 4,000 tree pods tomorrow in Barrie. So he's working right now. He's also got a background as a tree planter and mechatronics. Angelique is our Chief Strategy Officer. She's a graduate of the Florida Institute of Technology with NASA, and she's also the Chief Operating Officer of a tech education firm. I'm the Chief Operations Officer here at Flash Forest. I was acting Chief of Staff for the Government of Alberta. I also draft curriculum for universities on corporate social responsibility and renewable energy. Andrew is our Chief Designer. He's also a founder, and he's from Shopify. He makes us look good. We have Greg Matthew Crossley. He's our lead engineer. He oversees the hardware and software development. He's incredible. Turns prototypes out week after week. Joshua Califato is our software engineer. He's also a valedictorian of Canada's top engineering school, the University of Toronto. And then Mark, who's also on this chat, is an environmental engineer with a lot of business development experience, especially in grant writing. We also just hired 4 students as interns from the UBC School of Engineering, all top of their class on a grant. So they'll be starting with us June 1st. We have a seed geneticist and a soil ecology consultant also on our board of advisors. So as I mentioned before, we want to get down to 75 cents a tree by 2023. We want to be very competitive, not just in Canada, but internationally. And thus far, we've organized pilots with the University of British Columbia, Forest Ontario, as well as in Hawaii, so that we're planting over the course of this year between 150 to 200,000 trees. Next year, we're negotiating pilots in Australia, Malaysia, and Colombia, some commercial and some government partners. And we're trying to keep our numbers low for these plants in the first 3 years, because right now we're really refining our R&D to have like the best possible yield, best possible germination we can get. We're really building that up. We could plant 600,000, we could probably do 1 million this year, but we're trying to keep it low for the first 3, at which point we're ready to convert these existing pilots into large commercial opportunities. These are 3 scenarios that we've kind of predicted for our company with the gross margins. Right now, with like aerial seeding is a process of just dropping seeds out of a plane. You get about a 4% yield. Tree planters have about an 80% survival rate. We're aiming with our pods to get somewhere in the middle, around a 40% survival rate. But we know that even if we do it at a 20% survival rate, so that it's 5 pods that it takes to get 1 tree, we're still actually going to be very profitable with a very positive free cash flow by 2023. And then our investment ask, we actually just reduced it. We had an angel come in yesterday, took another $100,000. Prior to that, we raised $260,000 through friends and family with a safe instrument. For this, we're probably just going to be doing an equity round. And prior to friends and family, we did a Kickstarter campaign where we raised $82,000. So I'd be happy to take your questions.
Okay, thank you. Mar.
Oh, I think are you
Yeah,
muted?
I think you're on mute.
I'm muted. Good job. I'm very clear. I'm curious, who is actually your customer, and what does it take to convince your customer to, choose you as their solution?
Great question.
Steven.
Hey, Cameron, I'm curious, you mentioned, I think 3 pilot, each pilot can operate 3 drones. And I'm curious what it takes to become a pilot or planter and how that may impact your ability to scale.
Great question.
So I have 3 questions. Mara asked the first one. So my second question is, there are, of course, other companies that do plant trees, and there are some stuff that are specific to the way that you do it. But what's a barrier to entry? That why couldn't those companies that they already are doing this at scale, why wouldn't they be able to do the same thing over time? And my last question is actually more of a research, but maybe just for the audience, you can help them put things into perspective. That how many trees does it take to plant to make 1 car carbon, basically net zero carbon impact?
Okay, that's a good question.
How many trees do I need to plant so my car is no longer making the environment worse off?
I'll give you one more. I'll tell you what you need to plant to offset your emissions. And I'm assuming that you travel a little bit, so I'll give you a number for that too.
Sure, add travel to it.
Okay. Okay. All right, excellent. So I'll start with your question, Mark. Great question. We have 3 brackets for clients right now, and we're actually negotiating our pilots with all 3 of them. So one is government. We want to plant permanent protected forests. The government of Canada, New Zealand, a lion's share of European countries, the United States have all committed to planting between 1 and 2 billion trees over the next 10 years. So that's going to be a reclamation obligation we are quite eager to fulfill, and we're already talking to governments to help them fill that gap. The other client is going to be companies that want to clean up their environmental portfolio, reduce their emissions, do reclamation. We're going to work with environmental organizations, which we're chatting with right now, and then we're basically going to fulfill that service agreement on their behalf, where we get the money from these companies, partner with a very large environmental organization, fulfill the contract. Third is timber and resource extraction companies. They have reclamation obligations. If you're a mining company in Canada, you usually have to plant 10 trees for every 1 you cut down. In terms of convincing them, to date, that hasn't been an issue. We've had over 60 different companies and 50 different countries reach out to us, desperate to like get us to work with them. Now, come plant a couple million trees. We're like, it's okay, we're doing pilots right now. And we chose out of that 50 that have contacted us, what were like the top 6 that we thought would be the best kind of relationship that we could convert into a commercial opportunity, but also kind of manage relationships, get access to what we need, and kind of scale accordingly. So we've already, we don't need to generate a sales funnel. Right now with our existing clients that have reached out to us, if we convert those into commercial opportunities, it's already about $100 million.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, Stephen, so how to become a pilot? Great question. To be honest, there's slightly different drone flying regulations in Canada and in the USA. The main issue with one of our competitors that does this, I don't even want to call them a competitor because I love what they're doing, that operates in the States, is they needed to get separate FAA or Federal Aviation approval to fly their drones because they're over 55 pounds. We actually fall under that bracket, and we've designed our mechanism to be able to hold our pods. They're quite light actually, so that we fall under that bracket. So you just basically need a drone license. And then to be able to control 3 at once, it actually doesn't require anything from the pilot himself. It's pretty much as simple as pressing a button, because now we've been working so hard on the software to map out these areas, these trajectories before. So we have obstacle avoidance, we're not wasting pods. And then we basically just overlay that software on our drones. You can press a button, you can sit down, drink kombucha. That drone will fly the flight path and it'll come back for you to reload the batteries, reload the pods.
Can I squeeze in one more quick question on that?
Sure.
Is the pilot geography bound? Can I be here in California and be operating, drone? I guess it has to be within.
It's gotta be within line of sight right now.
Yep, gotcha. I thought about that after I started.
Yeah, no, line of sight. But you know what? Potentially, we might not even need pilots at a certain point, but we're not going to take that risk just yet. If you want to join the team, Stephen, you DM me after this. And then Payam, barrier to entry. Great question. Great question. First of all, I love what our competitors are doing right now. There's 2. They've probably been in the domain for, I think, around 5 years. Our main kind of competitive advantage is what we've filed our provisional patent for. That is on the composition and the design of our pods. No, we worked with a seed geneticist to come up with a solution that helps really accelerate germination and bypass kind of we call it a stratification period, but seeds in North America, Northern Hemisphere, they need to experience winter conditions typically before they sprout. That means you need to basically keep them in refrigerators for 3 months, 60 to 90 days before you can take them to the field. So we're working on a solution which we apply to them to help germinate them quickly and also break kind of dormancy because you have a lot of stubborn seeds. Then we also built in basically our own kind of water retention polymer in these pods, which helps them with kind of withhold and sustain themselves during like drought-like conditions. That's a big advantage that we see right now. We've also been working on 2 prototypes for our pods. I have one right here that we inject in the soil, and then one that we basically deploy to rest on top of the soil and root into it. And we would use that where you have a lot of islanded trees. You have a lot of obstacles, things that you don't want the drone flying into. We have to fly 60, 70 feet above the surface. We have a different pod for that. And so that's actually what Bryce and Greg are in the field testing right now.
And how many trees do I need to be carbon neutral?
Okay, last question. Okay, so actually the average for a family, a North American household, is about, I think, around 250 trees. That's taking into account probably about 3 days in a hotel every year, one flight, driving your car regularly, and having about I think 800 square foot household. That's per individual lights, utilities. An individual who travels a lot could see anywhere between 675 to 3,000 trees needed to be planted on their behalf. I can't assume how much you travel. For me,
0 right now.
0? So you're probably at around
No, I mean right now 0.
Oh yeah, because of COVID.
Yes.
Yeah, fair enough. You're probably around the 250 mark, which was what we had kind of we had outlined that. We have a carbon footprint calculator on our website, actually, if you want to see it.
Sure.
And basically will say, these are your behaviors. This is how many trees.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad you joined the program, and you know, you guys are doing meaningful work. Take care.
Good job.
Okay, just to make sure that I'm not missing anything, this was the last one. And somebody tell me I'm wrong if that's not the case. I think that was the 5th one. Thank you to all the entrepreneurs for joining us. And I think they all did really, really good job. I'm an entrepreneur. I've presented to VCs many, many times. And I know that presenting to Mar or Steven would have been nerve-wracking to me. And the fact that they did an amazing job, knowing that they also have a larger audience. And you know, it was really impressive. And thank you, Mar. Thank you, Steven. I'm so grateful that you both joined this program. And thanks to all those in the background who made this possible. A lot of people worked very hard to bring this to everyone who joined us tonight. And again, if you are someone who's interested in any of these entrepreneurs, please reach out, let us know, reach out to them directly. You know that they're looking to raise money, and hopefully a few of them did interest you. And Jenna, did you have anything to add?
No, that's great. Just thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Of course. Mar, Steven, anything you'd like to add?
No, just really inspiring. I just appreciate all the entrepreneurs, and thank you,
Yes.
Payam, Jenna, the whole One Planet team, and Mar. It's been great to work with you all.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Just want to say, it looks like we have the right people to make the world a better place, and we need them. So it's good. I leave very optimistic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope that there will be enough interest that we'll get to do this again. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.